It seems like every time you open the news, you're hit with another story about Bitcoin being used for something illegal, like it's straight out of a spy thriller.
Yeah, it's become a bit of a trope, hasn't it?
Totally. So today we're going to try to get to the bottom of this. Is Bitcoin really just a tool for criminals, or is that a load of hype? We've got this super interesting article that really dives into the data and tries to separate fact from fiction.
Sounds fascinating.
It really is. So let's jump right in. This article starts off by saying how widespread this whole Bitcoin equals crime narrative has become. You see it everywhere, not just in the news, but in movies, TV, even in casual conversation.
Oh, absolutely. It's like the go-to plot device whenever someone needs to make a shady deal or move money under the radar. It's almost become a cliche.
Exactly. But here's where things get interesting. This article throws a real curveball by pointing out that, statistically speaking, the good old US dollar is actually the currency of choice for criminals. Honestly, when I first read that, I was like, wait, what?
It's true. And the scale is just mind-blowing. The amount of money laundered through traditional banking systems makes the Dogecoin stuff look like small potatoes.
Really?
Oh yeah, we're talking hundreds of billions, even trillions of dollars. The article even mentioned some specific cases, like Wells Fargo and JP Morgan getting slapped with massive fines for, get this, allegedly helping drug cartels launder money through their systems.
Wow, that's insane. So if the dollar is already the preferred tool for illicit activities, why is Bitcoin always getting dragged through the mud?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And this is where it gets a little ironic. You see, one of Bitcoin's biggest selling points, its transparency and traceability, thanks to this thing called blockchain technology, might actually be what makes it less appealing to criminals.
Okay, now you're going to have to break that down for me. How does that work?
So blockchain is basically a public ledger that records every single Bitcoin transaction. Think of it like having a record of every time a dollar bill changes hands, available for anyone to see. Yeah, that makes it really difficult to hide anything.
Yeah.
Compare that to traditional banking, where transactions are often hidden behind layers of, well, let's just say complexity.
So it's like criminals, and again, not that we're condoning any criminal activity here, but hypothetically speaking, they might like the idea of digital currency, but they also want to stay anonymous. And Bitcoin, it sounds like, doesn't really give them that anonymity.
Exactly. It's kind of a catch-22 for them. And this is where hard data comes in. The article cites the 2024 Chainalysis Crypto Crime Report, which found that only a tiny fraction, like 0.34%, of all cryptocurrency transactions were linked to illegal activities.
0.34%. Seriously, that's practically nothing.
It's minuscule. To put it into perspective, you're statistically more likely to be struck by lightning than to be involved in a Bitcoin transaction linked to crime.
That's incredible. Talk about a reality check. This whole time, I feel that we've been fed this idea of Bitcoin being used for shady stuff, but the actual numbers just don't back it up.
Right. It's a classic example of how perceptions can be so different from reality. But it gets even more interesting when we start talking about stablecoins.
Okay, so before we go any further, can you give us a quick rundown of what stablecoins are and how they're different from Bitcoin?
Sure. So, unlike Bitcoin, whose value can fluctuate dramatically, stablecoins are designed to be, well, more stable. They're typically pegged to more stable assets like the US dollar.
So you're saying their value is less likely to go on a roller coaster ride.
Exactly. And that can make them more appealing for everyday transactions. However, here's the thing. The report actually found that stablecoins were being used more frequently in criminal activities than Bitcoin.
Whoa, that's a twist. It's like we can't escape the almighty dollar, even in the crypto world.
It seems that way, doesn't it? But when you think about it, it kind of makes sense. Criminals who are used to using the US dollar might be drawn to stablecoins because they operate in a more familiar way.
That's a really interesting point. So where does all this leave Bitcoin? If it's not really this haven for criminals that we've been led to believe, what is it?
Well, the article actually has this great line that I think sums it up perfectly. It says, and I'm paraphrasing here, that Elizabeth Warren has a higher percentage of Native American ancestry than Bitcoin does criminal activity.
Okay, that's pretty funny, and it definitely drives home the point. The reality is the actual amount of Bitcoin being used for illegal stuff is minuscule compared to its overall use. It seems like this whole narrative about Bitcoin being primarily a tool for criminals is, well, kind of a myth.
Exactly. And it highlights how important it is to think critically about the information that's constantly being thrown at us, especially in today's world. It's easy to get caught up in sensationalized headlines and accept things at face value, but sometimes when you dig a little deeper, the truth can be surprising.
Absolutely. So if it's not criminals who are driving Bitcoin's growth, who is it? What's the real story here?
Well, the article suggests that a large part of Bitcoin's popularity stems from people who are looking for alternatives to traditional banking systems. This is especially true in countries with unstable currencies or limited access to financial services.
So it's possible that the real driving force behind Bitcoin isn't some shadowy underworld, but everyday people seeking financial stability and independence.
It's definitely a possibility worth considering, and it raises some even bigger questions. Could this technology, with its transparency and potential for creating a more inclusive financial system, actually be a force for good in the world?
Now, that's something to ponder. It's definitely food for thought as we continue to navigate the ever-evolving world of cryptocurrency.